Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining. I think we technically have a couple minutes, but we can go ahead and do introductions. So we're going to talk today about secure access with AI and dive into some of the cool things we're doing at Microsoft with Copilot for Microsoft Entra, some of the identity use cases and best practices that could apply to you. Clicker. So my name's Melanie. I'm Director of Product Marketing for Identity and Access.
And I'm Sarah. I'm Melanie's partner. I'm here from the product engineering side. I'm the PM for the Copilot investments we're making in Entra.
Awesome. We're excited to be here. Okay, let's jump in. Rise of Gen AI, I think it's no secret that it's really rising a lot faster than other previous technologies. Already over 1 billion people have used LLMs in the last 18 months. And, you know, we know that you are all actually looking at AI strategies because over 93% have said they're in the process of implementing or developing an AI strategy. And it's smart to do that because it is getting adopted so fast, and you need to be better prepared to implement and use Gen AI in a responsible way. So we hope that at least that many of you are already doing this already. But it's just incredible to see the adoption of AI. We've actually taken a look at some of our own Copilot adoption at Microsoft, and really promising results because already we've seen just with tasks 29% faster in what you can do. Even on the security side, it's really close to that number, about a quarter faster, doing security tasks as well. And catching up on meetings. How many of you have used Copilot in Teams? Oh, good. I see lots of hands. I know we do as well, and it's just made catching up so much faster, and it's just really changed the way that we work and how we do things. And that means it's changing how your employees, people that you manage their identities for, how they're working. And it's giving us more time to work on more strategic things, which is really exciting. We've also seen on the coding front, 55% faster. It's amazing how natural language is such a powerful coding tool. Like you can just ask it to do what you need it to do, and you don't have to know all of the coding language. And then finally with customer service, I don't know how many of you deal with the help desk, people calling in for IT support. We're already seeing 12% faster there as well, and we'll show you a couple really cool use cases. So I'm sure you're all asking, how can Gen AI help me as an identity professional, as a security professional? So we're going to try to answer some of those questions for you today. The number one thing, identity continues to be a battleground. We have published this number before, but we've already seen password attacks go from around 1,000 to 4,000 just in the last year. That's per second. So just imagine the billions that are happening all the time. And that continues to grow exponentially. And right now, just the non-human identities is now outnumbering human identities 10 to 1. Passwords overall, over 300 billion. And so more passwords, more attacks, more non-human identities. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, we're not treating the non-human identities with as much rigor as the human identities that we've done in the past. So it's just escalating this problem and identity as this incredible battleground. So one great news is that Gen AI can really tip the scales in our favor. So we're going to show you these 4 things today. How you can use Gen AI to discover high-risk users, how you can use Gen AI to investigate and troubleshoot users and sign-ins, how you can use it to get recommended guidance and remediation steps, and then finally how to create workflows and eliminate configuration gaps when you're doing those. So first, let's go ahead and kick in. So let me just say real quick while it's pulling up here. This is our Copilot for Security portal, if any of you have seen it, where you can actually pull in all of the different Copilot skills from multiple security solutions into one view. And now you can actually use it to discover a bunch of information. So go ahead.
Thanks, Melanie. And yeah, I'm very excited to showcase some of the early offerings that we have already brought and delivered to customers in the Copilot for Security platform. I'll also mention Copilot for Security is the Copilot that's bringing Entra scenarios to life for folks that are investigating identity compromise or folks that are maybe administrating an environment and trying to protect their identities against future compromise. Copilot for Security is Microsoft's investment in being able to help those defenders and admins be able to move at that machine speed to keep up with the evolving pace that Melanie alluded to. It's the underpinning across the Microsoft Security suite of products. So you will see Microsoft Entra have Copilot for Security capabilities, but we also have very tight integration on the same Copilot platform with Microsoft Sentinel and Defender, Intune, Purview. If you're using those Microsoft Security suite, we're all interconnected with this Copilot offering. So we're trying to use that as a mechanism to surface this kind of information, use one of generative AI's best strengths to be able to summarize and bring some of this information to the fingertips of folks that are investigating an incident or trying to put in protections to reduce the likelihood an identity incident reoccurs. I'll also briefly mention, before I go into the demo and the scenario showcased here, that there's a growing ecosystem of third-party plugins on the Copilot for Security platform. Things like ServiceNow and Splunk are integrating and part of the Copilot platform as well. We do want to bring a breadth of the data that you might have in your estate to your fingertips as you investigate an incident like this or be able to configure your environment to more holistically protect against a compromise. In the example that you see shown here, this is Copilot for Security embedded in the tool itself, the connection with all of the data that Microsoft Entra provides. The investigator could look for users that are potentially impacted or involved in an incident. They could also dig in a little bit deeper on the next slide here. If there's a user involved in that incident, maybe requires some follow-up, we're bringing that contact information or information that could help the incident investigator and responders be able to reach out and close down ask them to ship back a device for further forensics or take further action on that particular account. We've also enriched Copilot for Security with data from, on the next slide here, it'll show the Entra ID audit log information. So there's information about what changed in your environment that we're also bringing that summary, what might have taken a SOC investigator several minutes to go through our Entra audit logs and dig for this information, or maybe an email or a ticket out for and ask for help from an identity admin to be able to surface this information, is now available to them in the context of looking into more information about that particular incident. These kinds of scenarios that we're bringing into Copilot for Security, we're seeing are saving folks that, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, every minute counts in an incident response, but we're also seeing that folks are being able to get access to data that might have eluded them before. We're bringing this kind of insight and awareness and ability to take action on this to more and more folks in the organization. I also want to show an example of how this same kind of power that we're bringing in Copilot for Security is going to be meeting identity admins directly where they are in the Entra experience. So Melanie, if you could show the next slide here. One of the earliest scenarios that we are bringing directly embedded in Microsoft Entra is geared at helping IT admins or identity admins save that same kind of time with some of the top tasks. Melanie referred to help desk support volumes earlier. One of the things that we know is top of mind, one of the top asks that folks, if you administer an environment, you very likely have heard this question before. What happened during this sign-in? Why was this user prompted? What policies were evaluated? What can we do to improve this experience going forward? We're bringing the same kind of summary capabilities through Copilot for Security and Entra to the sign-in log troubleshooting experience to, again, help summarize and bring that kind of information to the fingertips and help provide in-band recommendations as well on how an admin could take action to further secure or reduce a productivity impact on their users.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think I want to sit around and do troubleshooting sign-ins all day long. So it's just a huge time saver and lets you work on even more things and just really get to the root of the problem right away.
Yeah, that's right. We want to have Copilot help do the heavy lifting, help shift and transform the type of tasks that an admin might be performing, from doing the analysis and the investigation, pulling all the data together, to verifying the information that's returned and then being able to take action on it to better improve the security posture or help your business ultimately achieve its goals. I also have an example here that I'll show of the type of policy information that's available in the troubleshooting experience. I alluded to this a second ago, but many of the difficulties that we see in the environment today are connecting your user's experience to the configuration that you've made in the environment. With Copilot, the sign and logs troubleshooting experience we're bringing to Entra provides that link directly in the conversation you're having, helps sort through the noise and pinpoint exactly where you're having a policy that's evaluated on a sign-in, maybe help you make an adjustment to the coverage of that policy, maybe deconflict policies that are running unexpectedly. I also wanted to show an example. I think Melanie teed up earlier at the pace that the world is evolving, the kinds of identity-based attacks that are out there. We really want to help admins in saving time with investigating and identifying risks of compromise to the identity themselves. So one of the first scenarios that we have here, and I'll show a demo of this in action in the Entra portal, is for investigating a risky user. In this demo, you'll see an identity admin using our familiar experience in Entra ID protection to look for a user that's at risk. One of the top questions that we've heard from customers, one of the things we know folks have struggled with over the years, is understanding more about how Entra arrived at that evaluation of why a user is being considered at a high risk of compromise, for example. We're bringing with Copilot a summary of that exact answer directly embedded into the portal to help contextualize, provide insights into why a user is at risk before an admin would go take an action to correct that account, take a user through a password reset, or potentially block them from access until further action can be taken on their account.
And the great thing is it does it in more natural language, so it's not just like spitting back all the logs to you, it's actually summarizing it.
Yeah.
So let's see what it looks like.
So you'll see here the admin click into our identity protection experience in the Entra portal, look at a risky user who's marked as at risk in our risky users report. Copilot automatically generates the summary here of why this user is at risk, potentially related to sign-in activity, anomalous token behavior, provides a recommendation of what to do about it, and links to documentation. Our hope is that this kind of Copilot summary and meeting folks where they're at in investigating an identity can help folks understand the activity in their environment and take action to be able to prevent these kinds of identity incidents from reoccurring. Implementing some of the automated protections that are available with our expanded feature set, or beyond, just taking a security best practice guidance and implementing it to prevent these kinds of compromise.
Exactly. Yeah, so that it's just so powerful to be able to get that user risk insight right there just in seconds. So it would have probably taken me a ton of time to go through the logs, compare it to the incident, what's going on, figure out what to do next. Like that, I think, is really going to change the game.
We're looking for more ways to save our IT and identity administrators time. I've got one more demo or click-through example that I want to show here of how we're bringing Entra to help administrators with Copilot configure the kinds of protections or automations in their environment that can help take it from there. We've been talking a lot about being able to move faster, keep pace with the speed of attack, with the stay focused on the most important tasks for an identity admin in evaluating your strategy and improving the posture of your environment. In this example I show here, Copilot is taking an intent behind what an admin is trying to accomplish, helping translate that intent, that described outcome that they're looking for, and using that to inform a configuration setting directly in the environment. So the specific example, one of our offerings is Entra ID governance lifecycle workflows. You can configure a workflow to automatically take certain actions when an employee joins or leaves an organization or moves about the cabin at that organization. Copilot here takes in the intent from an admin just need to describe, I'd like to configure a workflow thusly that does these kinds of actions, takes these steps, sends them a temporary access pass to get them passwordlessly onboarded to the organization. Copilot infers from that the intended configuration setting, creates a draft of it for that admin, and takes them through the experience of configuring it in the portal. The time savings that arise from this are also married up with, it's a very intentional Copilot architecture that we have at Microsoft, and we do see being adopted across the industry, where Copilot is recommending or helping support that admin in moving faster from intent to outcome, but the human is still in the driver's seat for making the actual implementation itself. I should mention in the context of our evolving security space that all of this is baked on the user's authentication context. So it's all within the what a user could do outside of Copilot is what they're going to be able to achieve within a Copilot modality. We'll talk a little bit more about some recommended security actions that we think can help augment this kind of workflow as well. These types of Copilot scenarios or generative AI supported scenarios, we think can save the identity admin the same kind of time savings that our information workers and consumers are seeing in generative AI products beyond the identity security administration space.
Yeah, and to reiterate what you were saying, it's it's assisting you. It's your Copilot, but it's not. You can set it so that it doesn't say automatically just generate this workflow and make it happen without your approval. Like you still get a chance to have it go into sort of a draft mode, and then you can go ahead and decide when you're ready to configure it. So it's kind of like pre-setting up the workflow, assisting you, making sure you didn't miss anything, and then you get to choose when it goes out. So there's still that control there as well.
Right. And these quick few examples of what we're bringing to life in Entra with Copilot for Security are just the beginning for us at Microsoft. We're looking at extending these kinds of scenarios to more time-saving tasks. The top things that we see our Entra admins doing in our portals today, and the connection in between the identity side of the house and the security operations center. So it's just the beginning for us. I think these kinds of patterns are ones that we're going to see continue to evolve and develop. We are hopeful that these kinds of scenarios help extend the reach of the features and functions that are out there. I think over the years we've seen with Microsoft Entra, even in some of the guidance that we've had on security by default and configuring things like multi-factor authentication for your admin community at a minimum, some of those policies haven't been adopted broadly across the tenant space, all of the customers that we support today. We are hoping that and aiming for these kinds of Copilot scenarios to help folks cross that last mile, understand the ramifications of a security policy change like that, help them be able to make those decisions, help them implement, maybe configure, transform, translate a configuration into a setting that works for them. These kinds of things we think are going to start showing up across the industry as well to help folks be able to move faster with identity protections, not just identity response.
And I mentioned the non-human identities in the beginning. Do you want to share a little bit about what we're doing for risky apps?
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. I showed a demo of our risky user investigation. One of the things that I'll share with this audience, I know it's, you can take and tell your friends about it, but we're launching a preview here in the next couple of days that extends the application risk, user risk investigation capabilities into the application risk space. So for risky applications, risky service principals, or risky workload identities, we'll similarly have capabilities for both defenders and application admins or identity admins to be able to assess risky applications that might have over-permissioned or inactive permissions assigned to them, be able to identify and take action on those as well. That's one example that's right around the corner. We're super excited to bring that to customers here in the next couple of days.
All right, now let's talk about what some of these opportunities for Gen AI. I mean, there's a few things that Gen AI is really good at. What would you say?
I've cited earlier, I think it's great at summarization. I also think it's great at translation style tasks. We think it can really help transform and translate well. Those are some of the top actions that we're bringing into Copilot for Security.
Yeah, and I think, again, just, we're started out with a lot of the security investigation, more defending, but now we're really moving into that proactive protection opportunities for Gen AI. Going beyond just summarizations to getting more deeper insights, going further down into different types of questions. And then, like you said, the translation. Translation can mean a lot of different things. It could, just be translating from one code to another code, from one language to another. In this case, it's kind of timely here at this conference, but translating industry standards, like, how do you think that would help the identity professionals?
Yeah, we've seen these use cases already, I think, in being able to, it's not just language translation, from English to Japanese or something like that, but in the application of industry standards, particular compliance guidelines or maybe a security framework that folks are trying to implement. One of the benefits that we see in generative AI is that it can help perform that translation of that external guidance or external standards in the context of your environment and your configuration, and help you understand and take action on what you might be missing for that particular standard. There's a lot of power that I think generative AI unlocks, and being able to help make those kinds of things real for your specific example, your specific implementation.
So it could potentially tell me how to meet like the NIST standards that I need to.
Yeah.
Awesome. We want to leave you with some things to consider, some things to think about when you're using Gen AI for identity. The number one thing is that there's no security through obscurity anymore. When you can use natural language to do searches through code, documents, all these things, what happens is it really surfaces a lot of the data that wasn't being managed, and information that maybe wasn't intended for that audience. And, maybe you were just trying to kind of hide a group or hide a document somewhere, but it can be found. AI is really good at that. So we've actually been teaming up with Microsoft Purview, which is our data management team, data security team, to, provide those signals, those labels, really look at the data specifically, and then be able to apply it with identity permissions of what access do you have. So to my second point, I think it's really critical for you at this time to review the access permissions that you have for your users and your apps as well, because apps can continue to talk to each other, and you might not realize that an app has such great privileges to do different things. And some of these situations they're acting semi-autonomously, and so it will surface whatever that user or whatever that app has been granted. It's still only what they've been granted. We have put guardrails around that, especially with the Microsoft Copilot, but you may not realize that you granted that high of access to those users and apps.
I'll double down on it. I think in the earlier slide we referenced how many organizations are looking at an AI strategy. I think a critical pillar of your AI strategy has to be how you handle the world of zero trust in the era of AI. These same kinds of protections that we've talked about for years, that had, having a strong identity, moving towards passwordless and phish-resistant authentication methods, ensuring that only healthy devices have access to things, ensuring that you've got a handle on your application permissioning, and those non-human cases that Melanie mentioned earlier. It's only going to be more important in the world of generative AI that those fundamentals are pervasive in your environment. If it's easier for you and for your colleagues or your employees to access this data, it's just as easy for the malicious actor to take a similar path if you haven't put those protections in place. So if there's one takeaway that you have from this session, I hope that it's, if you're in that 7% that haven't started an AI strategy, today's the day. It's time to get a point of view together on how you keep up as generative AI enters the world of identity.
Yeah, and just to put some color behind the increase in password-based attacks, I mean, that's, really digging into the phishing and why you need phishing-resistant MFA, because the hackers have had access to Gen AI for a lot longer than we have. They started using the really, really early models, and they're getting more and more sophisticated every day. And so please just take an inventory of where you can put phishing resistant MFA and make sure you have all of your critical information protected, because they're going to try to exploit that right away, and it's happening really, really quickly.
Yeah, and at the same time, we also want to encourage you to be looking for these opportunities for where GenAI can help you be able to defend and protect your organization from compromise. We've shown our take on it, a couple of things that we're bringing to Microsoft Entra and the Copilot for Security platform. But every organization has its own wrinkles. Identify the places where you need the most help, where you could bring generative AI in and help alleviate some of the learning or how-to tasks, some of that, be able to reduce time spent on those things and focus on implementing and upping your security posture.
Yeah, exactly.
With that, we'll say thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.